Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast. We bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Yasmine Ghali. Yasmine Ghali is a holistic therapist based in Montreal, Canada, who also works virtually with people all around the world. Through her own healing journey and experience with chronic back pain, and after doing a session in holistic kinesiology and symbolism behind disease, which a friend told her about, she fell in love with the tools and started to study them. Since October 2019, she has been studying and now applying these tools to her clients and is continuously fascinated by them. Yasmine is incredibly passionate about guiding others back home to their true selves and to their healing power by helping them understand what holds them back and what has been programmed into their subconscious mind that doesn't serve them in creating the life their heart desires and only keeps them stuck in painful cycles. Some interesting facts about Yasmine is that she loves writing and is actually currently writing a book. She has also studied geography and has also studied fashion before she became a holistic therapist. She speaks also Arabic, French, and German. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast. And I meant to say French, not German. My apologies.
I was about to say.
A new language I've given you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to live up to that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're writing a book at the moment. That's exciting. That's very creative and it's a new aspect.
Yes. I just love writing. Everything channels through so easily when I write. And, I have so much to share that I've learned throughout my journey for the last 15 years. And so I just thought, what better way than to put it all in a book and help guide people on their journey to awakening as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You have to let me know when it's out so I can get my hands on it and understand it and get into it. I'm excited.
Definitely. You'll be the first to know.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So look, from what we know, you studied geography, you studied fashion, and now you're a holistic therapist. I mean, what have been the key turning points in your journey, in your life, to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a very big question. So many turning points. But I think there's one that really stands out. And that was the first time I had an anxiety attack, a panic attack at 23 years old, which at the time was very scary. I had no idea what was happening to me. I had never experienced an anxiety attack before. I wasn't really aware of how they felt or what it looked like to experience one. So I was kind of just at home with my sister, blow drying my hair, and all of a sudden I just felt like I couldn't breathe. And, I came out and just told her how I was feeling and ended up, the journey started there. When I look back, that was really like a moment of awakening. It really feels like everything before that was kind of a setup towards that. And then that was kind of the turning point, the awakening point. And everything after that was kind of a return to my true self. So that would be probably the turning point that sticks out the most for me.
Yeah, wow. And it's interesting how you say that we have these things happen in our life that bring us back to where we're supposed to be. And for you happened to be this anxiety attack that you were like, what is this? Where is this coming from?
Absolutely. I mean, it was my body's way of really just screaming at me to listen, like I had gotten a lot of whispers before that, but I wasn't aware. I didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with a lot of things. And so I just kept suppressing in so many different ways. And that was just my body's scream for help. And, like I said, it was a setup. When I was 7 years old, I lived through, we luckily got out after a week or two, but we did live through a little bit of a war, the Gulf War. I was born in Kuwait. And so me and my family, we were uprooted and had to leave very quickly. And, living through war and displacement just sends your body into this state of like unconscious danger, right? And for so long it was unprocessed because I was so young. And when you're 7 years old, it affects you on an unconscious level that only starts to show up later on in life. And so, yeah, like I said, it was, a lot of things leading to that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, we think that when kids are younger, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in your states, they won't remember or they don't know what's happening. But, you're saying that, unconsciously you were aware of what was happening. You're aware of your emotions, it was happening to you. And then it took you to a certain age to realize and reflect back on it.
Exactly. I remember the first time I saw a therapist for that. And I mentioned that, I'm the youngest of 4 children. So he kind of explained to me how my brothers and sisters, because I had asked him, how come they didn't react in the same ways. So my brothers and sister were older. They didn't feel as helpless and they were able to express their emotions more clearly. So, it affected us all, but really at that age, it's really on an unconscious level.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So you've had a few key turning points there with the war and then, the anxiety attack. And then you also studied geography and then fashion. So what led you actually to, become a holistic therapist going from, it's a wide range.
I've always loved fashion since I was a child. I would draw dresses and my mom got one made. And, even as I grew up, a lot of people would tell me like, you should go in fashion, you dress so nicely. And eventually I just bought into that, right? And thought, okay, maybe that's the path I should take. I didn't really know myself very well. I think the trauma and just being in a constant state of survival didn't allow me to really explore much of what I liked, right? I was just trying to survive for a long time. And so I kind of went with whatever people told me or whatever, sparked a little bit of interest in me. And when I started to study fashion, I realized quickly that just because I love to dress up and, dress myself up doesn't mean this is what I want to do for a living. So
it's so interesting how we get placed sometimes into, you're really good at this, we should go and do this. So what got you to do holistic therapy, like kinesiology? What got you into that?
Yeah, I think it was my own healing journey and just seeing how much I could take back my power and, get to know myself so deeply and get to know all my limiting beliefs and my programmed and conditioned beliefs that were really, holding me back in life. And just seeing that process it was so powerful and empowering that I just really wanted to share it with everyone who, was on a similar path. At first, I wasn't sure how I would want to share that. I thought, okay, maybe I'll go into coaching. And then one of my friends told me about this holistic kinesiologist that she sees. As soon as she started to tell me about the muscle testing that she uses to ask questions to the subconscious mind, I was just fascinated. So I tried it for myself. And that same day I got the pamphlet and I signed up. And that's where it started. I mean, it was really through my own journey.
Yeah, and that's beautiful that you have that drive behind you of your own journey that pushes you through to assist your clients and help them with their journey. That's absolutely amazing. So on the podcast here, we talk a lot about success. And I mean, back in the days, success for Yasmine would have been a lot different to what it is now. I mean, success would have looked differently, So what does success look like for Yasmine right now, today?
I feel like success and failure are such interesting concepts. Because my path was so different from the people around me, for a long time, I did feel like a failure. I felt like something was wrong with me. Why couldn't I do the 9 to 5? Why didn't I have children? Why wasn't I, following the majority, right? And for a long time, I really thought I was just lazy and something was wrong with me. And so it wasn't until, later on in life that I realized every failure is just an opportunity to grow. It's also a redirection and a lot of times divine protection. So I feel like if we focused more on that versus the idea of, success and failure, I think we'd be a lot less hard on ourselves, and we would just take every opportunity to grow and learn and, not beat ourselves up about it. But I think if I had to define success, it would be to, live from a place that is true to me, where, I think it's the not the lack of resistance, but it's allowing my whole experience, all of my emotions that I resisted for so long. That's what created the most suffering. And so just being able to allow all of that, and, not live in fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, all those fears that we have that end up, making us live a life that is not our own and that doesn't feel true to us. So to me, that really is success. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the audience would definitely link with that, because you've mentioned some deep topics right there: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, of failure, and so forth. But you've also spun it around where you said, if you do fail, it's actually a beneficial thing, because then you can succeed and you can get yourself up and achieve that and be true to yourself. So I love that definition of success. I love that, you went through that and you're able to put that forward to us. I love that. So thank you for sharing that. But let's get into today's topic that I'm so interested to talk about. I can't wait for you to enlighten us on all this. So it's the emotional conflict behind your disease. I mean, even that topic in itself, a lot of people will be like, what? There's emotions with my disease? No, my disease is my disease. So I guess to start off with, let's understand emotions, the basics of what actually are emotions, because we're not really educated on what emotions are. We know that we should feel them and they're there, or sometimes we shouldn't feel them, but what are they?
So I think emotions, it says it in the word, it's energy in motion. I don't know if, you guys have heard that before, but when I heard that, I just thought it was so amazing. So I feel like emotions are a doorway into our soul, into our subconscious. And they're really gifts once we see them that way. But oftentimes, we don't have the tools, we haven't been taught how to process emotions. And that's why we resist them, we numb, we escape in so many different ways. But they really are messengers from our soul, from our bodies. And they show us where there's still, work to do, or where there's still trauma, or where we're more reactive, and so because we're made up of energy. All of our cells and our bodies are just pure, they're physical. Yes, we're physical beings, but there's we're made up of energy. And I think that an emotion just comes in and stirs up our energy, right? Whether it's anger, sadness, frustration, grief, it comes up and it really touches something and stirs up the energy. So we're, if we didn't have that resistance, we would just allow the emotions to flow through us. But because we resist for different reasons, like I said, because we don't have the tools, or because we're never taught how to process our emotions, that energy can get stuck in our bodies.
Yeah. And we are energy, aren't we? And it's a huge concept. And it's, for some people it might be a bit hard to understand that we are like, you are me, I am you, we are energy. Like, it's such an interesting concept. And it's when we are on this earth that we separate our bodies from you are you, I am me, I'm my body, I'm my personality. Whereas in all, we are just energy and we are all one. So it's just absolutely crazy. And then those emotions, it's kind of like those emotions have similar energies to us. And like you said, it's crazy how it can get stuck in us. And that's, I guess, where the frustration comes, where the anger comes, when there's that blockage. And and that's, I guess, where we're going to be talking about today, about what happens there. But before we get into that exciting, so now that we understand a little bit about what emotions are, because the topic is the emotional conflict behind your disease. So we've got the emotions, and then we've got, what is the disease? What is a disease?
I just wanted to add that with emotions, just to note that they're usually based on past experiences. And this is where emotions and intuition are very different. Intuition is, it comes from a clear lens, whereas emotions, they're really based on past experience. So as much as we need to honor them and honor our human selves, it's very important not to drown in them, or, to have a connection to something else, the higher parts of ourselves that are able to, not allow us to drown in them and see them as the gifts that they are. And it's a practice, it's the more you've been in those patterns of just reacting emotionally, the more time it will take and the more practice it'll take, but it's very, very possible. So
yeah, I'm glad that you put that in there. It's so interesting because a lot of people might feel something like, is that my intuition or is that my emotion? So I love that you touched upon that, because it's a blurry line, isn't it?
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
You can start to feel it with practice.
Yes, with practice. We'll get into that too. I love it. I love it. So what would you say is disease? I know, like, from a doctor's point of view, disease is a certain thing, but from a holistic therapist, what would you see that disease is?
So the simplest way I would describe disease is it's resistance. It really is, because like I was saying, when emotions flow through us, when we get angry, we allow ourselves to feel that, it just passes through us on the next moment. But when we resist an emotion, or we judge it, we overthink it, we create stories about ourselves revolving that emotion, that's when the energy gets stuck. There's a resistance to it. And disease it's emotional conflict. And so you're in conflict with your emotions. So it's not the emotion that's the problem. It's really our conflict with it. And, dis-ease, I love these play on words, but, it's literally not being at ease in our bodies and with ourselves. It's the opposite of allowing, of flowing with life. And, when we attach to emotions by overanalyzing them or judging them or numbing or escaping, that's when we carry them with us. Like I said, we don't allow them to just flow through. And so the body at some point will come in and, the body's just responding to our subconscious, right? It's really like a physical manifestation of our subconscious mind. And so, and it's always trying to protect us. It's always, trying to keep us alive. And when it sees that we don't really have the tools, or we're not able to process certain emotions and we're in conflict with those emotions, it will take over. The body will take over and create the perfect solution. So for example, I had shared this on social media the other day, migraines. When you have really bad migraines, you'll end up going in a dark room, closing the door, and just shutting the world out, right? And the symbolism behind migraines is, you don't trust yourself, you don't trust your ability to make decisions. Your intellect, you put yourself down in terms of your intellectual process. And so, the body's perfect response to that after a while is to give you migraines. So, we think that disease is something that's working against us, but it's actually just a reflection of our fears and our the way we see ourselves in the world.
Yeah, wow, that's an absolutely great example. I like that you gave us an example about migraines.
Yeah.
Because a lot of individuals do suffer from headaches or migraines, and they
Mm-hmm.
wonder why. And it's such an interesting link with, emotions and the disease, or this is in our body.
Literally.
I do like that play on words. I love it. When I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. So
Yeah.
how I know you explained a little bit of how they're interlinked, the emotions, and the disease, because we're fighting against it and then it causes it. And then our body all the time is doing the right thing in a way that it's supposed to, because we're blocking it. But how does emotional conflict affect disease development? So you gave an example of a migraine. Is there anything else that you can add to this?
Yeah. There's also, what I learned and what resonates for me is there are 5 criteria for disease development. So, it's not everyone. 2 people will live the same situation. One might develop some sort of symptom and the other no, because they don't, those criteria haven't been met. So the first criteria is that the event or, emotion we're feeling is very dramatic. So the intensity, it's very strong, it's emotionally charged to the point where it consumes us. We can no longer be present in our days, where that's all we think about. And, that's fine for in the short term. But if that continues, again, that becomes a threat to our survival, because if you're not present, you can literally, cross the street and get hit by a car. So again, your brain will start to see the danger in that. So that's the first criteria. The second is an unexpected or sudden event, so that you were not mentally prepared for. So, a sudden loss, a sudden breakup, even a sudden disease that comes on. So, you're kind of wrestling to understand and reason. So that's the second thing. The third one is something that creates conflict within you. So again, it comes back to you're trying to reason your way out of it. So something happens, it causes you to feel sad. Instead of allowing yourself to feel sad, you try to reason your way out of it. And, you can't seem to. So it's like you're in conflict in that way. You're trying to reason, but you can't seem to, and you end up finding no solutions. The fourth criteria is isolation. So the person lives whatever event triggered those emotions without seeking support, without, whether it's from the community or professionals, or and the person detaches almost from the emotional part of the experience. And so when you speak to the person, they're almost telling you about the experience as if it's someone else living it. You see how they're emotionally detached from it. And then the last one again comes back to really, I'm left with no solutions. Solutions can be practical or emotional. So let's say I have a very annoying neighbor and he's always infringing on my property, and he makes me very angry. A practical solution would be to move. But that solution, will prevent disease in the moment. However, because we haven't addressed the emotional component, maybe I'll have a new annoying neighbor, because that's how it usually works. And then the emotional solution would be to really understand, what's causing you to feel this way, and to really allow those emotions to come through. And so these are the 5 criteria for disease development.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you just saying that, I know myself, I'm like, yep, I've done that. Yep, I've done that. Different scenarios.
Yeah.
Yep, I've isolated. Yep, I've closed off. I've done this. I can just imagine everyone else listening and be like, yep, I've done that. Okay, cool, I've done that. And it's crazy because it just seems like the norm, like normal. It's not like an abnormal thing that you said that everyone's like, oh, wow, do people do that? It's no. Yes, this is also how we're taught in a way sometimes to do things. Just move, do practical, just move, don't deal with it, just close, just block, just do this, instead of sitting back and actually being like, well, why, how, what can I do this, how is this affecting me, what emotions are coming up, because it's a lot easier in our head a lot easier that we, in quotation mark, in our heads to do those things that you said than to actually reflect back and sit down and ask for help and receive help and understand, isn't it?
Yes. And we're not conscious of the things we do that can lead to, disease or certain symptoms coming up. And this is the reason why I'm really passionate about spreading this information, because I feel like when you know that, you take different actions, you deal with things differently to prevent, yourself from experiencing very severe symptoms. One thing I want to say is when I took this class, I often felt, anxiety coming on. I had to stop and speak to the teacher at lunch because I was like, well, I do this. That means I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that. And she was like, that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's more just being aware. And so this is not to scare anyone. It takes prolonged periods of time for our bodies to react in these ways. And, just being conscious of it can make a huge difference. And that's what I wanted to say, is that depending on the severity and length of the emotional conflict, if it's a short-term conflict, it's resolved, a couple weeks in. I mean, there's no timeline to this. Everybody's different, but I may just have a stomachache or, a rash. But if I let it go on for years, then it could turn into something more serious.
Yeah, you're so right. It builds on. It's not just a thing. But it's interesting because, like, as a naturopath or any other health professional that I know, alternative health professional, they ask, when this started, what happened around your life? What happened? Did you move? Did you get a new job? Did you get divorced? Did you get married? Did you lose a lot of money? Did you gain a lot of money? And it's interesting when you do like a timeline of events, these triggering things, like those things that you said, those events that you push down or those events that occur all of a sudden that you're not ready for, that is when the disease is at acute stages and it starts. And that's why a lot of people can't link it to an event, because like you said, it kind of builds on. It just doesn't, the event happens and then you get the disease. The event happens and then you get the disease, so-called, And even in literature and scientific studies, it's shown that traumatic events can cause a start of a lot of autoimmune diseases and things like that. So everything that you're saying makes sense logically too.
Yes. And a lot of times those events that, trigger certain symptoms, it also can be tricky, because a lot of times there has to be like a program that's already there from our ancestry or our, somewhere in our generational patterns. And so, for example, for me, experiencing a war, being in the Middle East, and then not going back there for years. When I was 28 years old, I got married and I moved back to the Middle East. And as soon as I got there, I felt so anxious on an unconscious level. I had no idea why. And that's when my back pain actually was triggered. And so it's almost like, because as a child, I wasn't able to resolve all of the emotions that came with war and displacement, I was given another opportunity to resolve them then by kind of repeating a similar situation. And it's just amazing to see how the universe is always conspiring to, help us grow and understand and evolve. And, if we don't understand or process something the first time, we are given other opportunities to do so.
Yeah, we're definitely faced with other opportunities. Like you said, with the neighbor, it's like, yes, you have moved, but the similar thing may come up. It may not be a neighbor, maybe at work, someone doing the same thing, or a partner. Yes. It's interesting. These things keep coming up for us to develop, evolve.
And I just wanted to add that, that marriage didn't last very long. And I got divorced a year later. And that was also a big turning point in my journey, because that was the beginning of me, making choices, even if I were to disappoint people, So me facing my fears of judgment and kind of getting to know myself and what aligns with my soul. And so making decisions based on that. And that's when my life really took a turn.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. It just allowed you to face the big issue, the big judgment, the big, the big issues like fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of so forth, and you had to face that. And I mean, I guess now you're more equipped with tools in your, in your life, in your mind, in your heart, that you can deal with things that are placed upon you like that.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm really thankful for all those experiences.
Yeah, and you help people do that now. So I guess, how important is it to be self-aware for disease prevention? Because you were talking about being self-aware, going through all this. You had to be self-aware. You had to become self-aware. So how important is self-awareness to, I guess, prevent a disease?
I'll give my example again of, my chronic back pain. So basically, just to show a bit the symbolism behind disease and how it works.
Yes, please. I love this. I'm excited.
Because different systems in the body and organs correspond to different natures of conflict. And so for me, all the events in my life were affecting my solidity. And so my bones were affected, literally, my internal structure, my ability to move forward with confidence and trust in life. I was very scared all the time. And so it's just so amazing to see. And, for a long time, doctors didn't really know what I had. And finally, they told me, okay, you have herniated discs in some parts. But at the end of the day, they did what they could. There's always a limit to what they can do. And as soon as I started to understand what it was trying to tell me, what my chronic pain was trying to tell me, I was able to reverse most of it and create that relationship with my body. And, now even if it creeps up here and there, I feel like my body responds so much more quickly. And so I feel like awareness is so important with disease prevention, because once we know this information, once we know that our body's just reacting to our emotions, our subconscious beliefs, then, the more self-aware we are, the less our body has to kick in and take over and say, hey, you can't handle this, so I'm going to take the wheel.
Yeah.
And so just being aware, taking a step back on what's coming up for us, it's a practice.
Yeah, 100%. And you yourself have experienced I guess, with, like you said, your back pain, your bones, it's your structure, it's your foundations. They weren't strong to move forward, which is such a great symbolism. Oh my gosh, I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's interesting because I guess the audience listening now would be like, well, I may have some, I don't know, some issues with maybe their hands. And then they might be thinking, is that a symbol for something? So are you saying that most things, so if someone has a pain or a disease in a certain part of their body, that can be linked to something?
Yes, absolutely. Every symptom that we have is linked to something. And that's where holistic kinesiology is really a beautiful tool to add to this, because we can actually test, the person's not always fully aware, okay, it may be this, but I'm not sure. When did it start? Was there a trigger? And so we can test, we use muscle testing to ask the subconscious mind, okay, was it at this time? Was it this? Just to understand more and pinpoint the source of the issue.
Yeah, wow. I mean, for the audience, I know we're in the podcast in the middle of it, but some might be like, what's kinesiology?
Yeah.
Brief outline, what is it?
That's why I was until I saw someone, do it for me. I couldn't really understand as much as they explained to me. So basically, if I ask you to put your arm out right now, and I ask you not to resist, and I just push down, I say, think of an apple, something that's good for you. And I push down, your arm will stay strong. And if I ask you to think of something that's not good for you, then your muscle will go weak. So it's kind of a way to get answers from the body. And I can use my fingers to test for the person, because if I'm not with them, or it gets tedious to just have your arm out all the time. And this is where energy plays out, where I can just connect to your energy and ask a question, and if my fingers stay like this, then it's a yes. Okay, they can't see me, but you know what I mean. If the muscle stays strong, then it's just a way to get feedback from your body on where your weaknesses lie and where there's work to do.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing that was going around, I think it was on YouTube or something, where you put something like you hold an apple or you hold a banana, and then it's all good. And then you put a mobile phone near you and it just drops down like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I was like, oh, what is this? I started researching and started finding out. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And it's right what you said. It links back to the energy. And I love the fact that these days you can do this virtually. Like you said, you can connect into someone else's energy and understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. And, a lot of times in the beginning, I was skeptical. I was even skeptical. And then the things that would come through were just like, I can't even question this. This is just, it's amazing. And it's like, it's years of talk therapy in a couple of sessions, because it really gets to the source of things. And, I often say that the subconscious mind, that's where magic is, in a way, because we can work on the conscious level, but if there are beliefs under there that are not addressed, then, it won't make a very lasting difference, or we'll have to fight a lot harder on the daily basis to work on a conscious level.
Yeah, and he gets straight to the point of it, and it doesn't use our mind that we try and justify things. Oh no, this is because of that. Like what you said earlier, one of the things of diseases is us justifying and explaining, and no, this isn't right. So it overcomes that too, which is absolutely amazing.
Exactly.
So on that note, what role does consciousness play in healing from any disease that an individual may have?
So, I mean, if we didn't have this information to prevent disease, we can still reverse things and heal ourselves. Obviously every story is different, but it is possible. And like we said before, the body is just responding to the things that we perceive as dangers, to our fears, to our subconscious holdings. And so when we dive into our internal environment, we can create a very different external one. And so just being more aware, again, of our emotions, of the subconscious, using holistic kinesiology is great, but there are many other tools. Just creating space to let those things come through, whether it's through journaling, meditation, sitting in silence, working with someone, because a lot of times we're not equipped to just sit with, like we tell people who are, have some sort of trauma to just meditate, but the whole point of the trauma is that they're trying to run from it. So you're telling them to sit with it without providing any, tools.
That could be so dangerous.
Yes. So it can be very re-traumatizing. I'll speak about trauma in a little bit, but I think, again, I'll give you another example other than mine. There was this girl in one of my classes who gives full consent to us using her story. She was on thyroid medication, and she was told that she would be on thyroid medication for the rest of her life. And once she worked with the symbolism behind disease and kinesiology to understand why her body was reacting in this way, I think she had a blood test a few months later, and the doctor was just floored. He was like, you don't need to be on this medication anymore. I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it, And that's kind of how it was with me too, with my back. Like my doctor just said, I really don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it because it's working. I don't really have anything else to do for you. So I think that when we begin to understand, then the body doesn't need to speak to us in that way anymore.
Yeah. Wow. that's crazy in regards to thyroid, because there's so many individuals who may have thyroid issues, and like that girl, they're told that they have to be on this medication for the rest of their life potentially, and in some instances even surgery. So it's just crazy that the symbolism behind it. So she dealt with. So what do you know the symbolism behind the thyroid? Like she worked on it. Is that what happened?
Yes. So a lot of times people who have hypothyroidism, so thyroid has to do with the rhythm of our lives. So hypo is usually like a feeling that we need to slow down, like life is going too fast, we're missing out on something, or we might go somewhere that is unsafe. And the opposite is true for hyperthyroidism, where we always want to do things fast and we feel like there's never enough time. And, you know, it's all about the rhythm with the thyroid. So it's very interesting.
I love that. I love that, because the thyroid is responsible for so many functions in our body. You know, the metabolism and so forth, like the heat in our body. And yeah, it's crazy how that's linked into the emotion and what we're doing. I just find that mind blowing. I'll absolutely love it. So you know, you said a story about how you went through trauma, and then, you know, it may have resulted in, you know, the pain and so forth. You dealt with it. But can you explain to us how trauma is linked with all of this, and how does it actually stay in our body and our mind and so on? Like, if you can just give us a little bit of an example on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, trauma is just the lasting effect that our experiences have on us. So again, anything that we carry with us. So for example, when I was 16, I lived through a very difficult breakup. I know I was 16, but it really seemed like the end of the world. Yeah. And because I didn't process any of that, I ended up carrying with me and creating stories around it. So the things, you know, we always think of trauma as like, yes, war or sexual or physical abuse, those big things, but it can be the quote unquote smaller things, anything that affects us and has a lasting effect on us, and then ends up affecting our lives. And so it ends up affecting our nervous system when we have, you know, too many unprocessed emotions. I know that at one point I just felt so overwhelmed by any daily task because my nervous system was just overloaded and could no longer process things in a regulated way. And so everything was exaggerated. I was extremely easily irritable, you know, easily triggered. And I just created this environment around me that was very controlled, because I didn't really want anyone to, you know, go to the places that I didn't want to go. And so this is how trauma lives in the body. It affects the nervous system. I know there's a lot of research being done about the vagus nerve. I don't know a lot about it, but it's, you know, the biggest nerve in the body that connects the brain to the rest of the body and vice versa. And, you know, it's when we have a dysregulated nervous system, our responses just become very, we're overreactive in so many ways, and life becomes a lot more difficult because, like I said, the daily tasks become really big ones. One thing that I wanted to mention that has helped me a lot is myofascial release. I don't practice it, but it's a way that, you know, a therapist kind of will find the points of tension in your body, often associated with trauma, and we'll just put their hands there and apply some pressure until there's release. A lot of times memories will come up, or, you know, you'll start to cry or shake, and it's because you're releasing an actual memory and emotions associated with it. So it's really, that really showed me when I went through that process that trauma really lives in the body. And for so long I worked on, you know, the mind, the subconscious, the emotional aspects, the energetic aspects, but without the body part of things, I was really missing a big piece.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because I've had this experience where I've just gone to get a relaxation massage. I was like, I'm just going to relax. walked out to my car and just started bawling my eyes out and crying and crying. And I'm like, was the massage that good that I'm crying, or what is happening with me? I didn't know what the issue was. And it's interesting until I realized, like what you're talking about, that we hold our emotions, that we hold these things. And just as simple as a massage that someone may be doing on you, maybe releasing these emotions. And I'm guessing the practitioner that you're talking about does specific, finds it and works on it specifically. It's not just like a remedial massage in a sense.
No, exactly. It's applied pressure for prolonged amounts of time on an area that's tense. And so it really goes deep. And, when you think of animals, how, they'll live through a dangerous situation, a life-threatening situation. And after that, they literally shake it off or, and come back to equilibrium in that moment. But we don't do that. Often we have to move on with our lives and find a way to adapt, and we create all these adaptive mechanisms and protective layers, whether it be emotional and physical, and it's undoing those layers, and the thicker the layers, the more time it takes, but it's a process and it's very possible.
Yeah. So we do definitely, like you said, we hold our trauma, and that could lead us to acute or chronic disease, depending on what we do. Like, do we shake it off? Do we deal with it? Do we ask for help? What do we actually do? So it's interesting. So the audience absolutely is probably like, oh my gosh, I love all this. This is absolutely amazing. I'm learning so much. But on a practical level, like, what can I do now to incorporate some type of techniques or some type of exercises to release emotions and essentially heal? So what would be some practical tips that you could give the audience?
My biggest tip, and the thing that made the most of difference in my life, is to create space. And space, be it emotional, physical, energetic. Again, we live in societies that keep us busy. There's rarely any space for our emotions, for our thoughts. And so I say, to my clients, even if it's 5 minutes a day, just create moments of stillness. Obviously, like I said before, just coming back to the trauma, I think, I have worked with clients where it's very hard for them to be still. It's very hard for them to go into meditation. And so, for those people, I really recommend working with someone to kind of stretch that emotional capacity, that muscle, but without getting overwhelmed and re-traumatizing yourself. But I think just even for those people, it doesn't have to be meditation, movement, even if it's a few minutes a day of stretching. I think, taking that time with your body, it's creating that relationship and that connection with your body, and it'll start to feel safe. It'll start to speak to you and respond to you. Another thing that I love, another tool that I love to create space is journaling, just getting your thoughts out, speaking to a friend, really just think of any way that resonates with you to make space and start to understand your inner landscape, because the answers are within, and that's where we have to go, and that's where health lies, whether it be emotional health, physical health. And so really creating space.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that. Journaling. I mean, it's, when we think about journaling, we think of like what you said, a 16-year-old girl that's gone through a breakup, laying on her bed, moving her feet and writing about her crush or her breakup, That's what we think about journaling, but it's so much more than that. And you can see how that actually does help teenagers deal with their emotions. So it's such a benefit to journal. And I mean, it's a great thing to do it every day. And I know it's a task for some people, but like you said, you can get so much out, and it can help you release those emotions, And if that's to yourself privately, or if that's with a friend, or if that's, and unfortunately everything that's happened last year, we haven't been able to catch up with those families, catch up with friends to release and talk about our emotions. So we kind of had to come in and maybe do it ourselves.
Yes. It gave us the opportunity in many ways to look within and take a pause and see what's there when we wouldn't normally have the time to do so.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to bring up is just getting out of your comfort zone, even in the smallest of way, because I think anytime I've gotten out of my comfort zone, it brings up my subconscious blocks and all my fears. And it's a great way to see where there's still work and healing to do.
Yeah, that's great, because I just thought about, for me, fear of heights. Putting myself to go.
That could be a past life thing.
yeah, there you go. Definitely. Maybe a past life thing. It's just, or it's who knows? I don't know. It's crazy, but just thinking about that, it's a challenging aspect to put myself, or anyone that's listening, to put themselves in there of feeling uncomfortable, and that's definitely going to bring up the things to work on. There's always things to work on.
Yes. I mean, we talk a lot about manifestation and everything, but the only way manifestation works is if we, see that thing we want, and then see what's between us and that thing, all the blockages between it. So that's where the healing is at. Yeah.
So much information on this podcast. Oh my gosh. Wow, we've just blown our minds. Absolutely amazing. Individuals have changed their view on what a disease is, what emotions are, and I mean, how these emotions, the blockages, affect our formation of disease, how we can prevent it. You've given us some practical tips. Absolutely amazing information. But before we finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is the Natural Health Podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack that you may do every day, once a month, once a year, and it's something that you do to optimize your health?
I mean, I wish I had a health hack, but to me, it's really all in doing the work, because, and I say that again, because it's really been a lifesaver for me. So I really feel like health and healing are an inside job. And like I said, we find the answers within. So really just finding any small way to explore and get to know ourselves better. And there are so many supportive tools out there to help us in that. And, we don't have to spend a lot of money. It could be just a book, some sort of guide, a podcast, but just finding a way to make space and do the work of just connecting to those parts of us that we're so disconnected from.
Yeah, 100%. So look, in regards to getting in touch with you, I know you have Instagram, and I'm going to put your handle and everything in the show notes. But if people want to get in touch with you or work with you, how are they able to do that?
Okay, so yeah, you can definitely email me. I guess you'll put that also with the rest of the information. You can message me on Instagram. That'll be there too. Facebook at A Path to Awakening. That's my holistic therapist page. And, like I said, I do one-on-one sessions virtually. And yeah, I just love to work with people.
Absolutely amazing. I love that. So look, thank you so much. And I know you've got some books that you recommended. Your book is on the works, and I'm going to put a list of books that you can recommend for information. Do you want to know a little bit more information about this particular topic? They can get it. Look at those, including My Body Keeps Score, Repetition, Ask and It Is Given, A Return to Love, and so forth. So many amazing books that I have to also get my hands on, and I've got some of them. As you can see, I've got plenty of books, but I definitely need to get my hands on some of these. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Natural Health Podcast. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your expertise, and willing to share.
Yes, I absolutely love sharing this stuff. Thank you for providing the platform for me to do so, and for your beautiful energy, and for having me on. It was a pleasure.
You are most welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.